The crystalline skyline of Varelia shimmered beneath the embrace of twin suns, their light scattering across the translucent spires and floating gardens of the capital. It was a view Princess Amira of House Saluran had known since her earliest memories. Yet this morning, as she stood at the edge of the solarium terrace, staring across the horizon, that view felt unfamiliar, alien, even. Below, the city buzzed with the usual rhythm of diplomatic engagements, ritual performances, and political negotiations. But here, in the sacred heights of the celestial spire, the air was thick with tension. Behind her, footsteps approached, measured, formal. "Your Highness," Chancellor Riven announced himself, his voice as smooth as flowing water. "May I speak?" "You already are," Amira replied, her eyes still fixed on the curve of the horizon. "So speak, Riven. Don't make me ask for what you were ordered to tell me." The Chancellor paused. "A visitor has arrived. A human." Her spine straightened instinctively, and for a moment, the wind caught the flowing white of her diplomatic robes like wings. "A human?" she asked, calmly but sharply. "From where?" "Earth hasn't sent an ambassador in over a decade. This one comes not as a diplomat, but with a personal claim. Orion Hale. He's invoked the Pact of Dawn." Silence reigned. Even the bioluminescent vines that wrapped the palace seemed to still in surprise. "That pact hasn't been called upon in generations," Amira said, turning to face him. Her eyes, violet with amber flecks, narrowed. "It was ceremonial. Symbolic. My mother signed it during the siege of Illyrian, in the middle of a dozen secret wars and broken truces." "It was more than ceremonial," Riven said gently. "It was signed in her own blood, under a life-debt oath. If she survived the siege, she promised her firstborn child would be bound in marriage to the one who saved her. A fusion of royal legacy and foreign valor. But my mother never told me who saved her," Amira said, voice low. "She only said that she made a promise she hoped she'd never be forced to keep." "Well," Riven said, "it seems that day has come." In the vaulted halls of the royal embassy, Orion Hale waited. His appearance was unremarkable in the galactic sense. He wore muted charcoal garments stitched with utility seams and quiet resilience. His hair was dark and cropped close, his skin tanned by many suns. The only remarkable thing about him was his stillness. He stood not like a diplomat or a beggar, but like a man who had come to claim what he was owed, and had already made peace with being rejected. Amira entered with her head held high, flanked by two guards in ceremonial armor. She regarded Orion with the calm disdain of someone inspecting an unpredictable element. "You're the one who invoked the pact." "I am," he said, voice rough like gravel worn smooth by time. "You saved my mother during the siege of Illyrian." He gave a curt nod. "Pulled her from the wreckage of the eastern skyport. She was unconscious and bleeding. I carried her 3 kilometers through hostile fire until your people found us. You could have died. I often have." She tilted her head, curious despite herself. "And in return, you demand marriage? That's a rather intimate price for a battlefield debt." "I never asked for anything. I waited. The pact was hers, not mine. But now, Earth is gone." The words hit her harder than expected. "Gone." He nodded. 3 years ago. No survivors. No answers. Amira hesitated. She had heard whispers, scattered stories about a catastrophe, a silent war, but nothing confirmed. No one knew what had happened to Earth. And now, here was a survivor. Alone. Desperate. Owed. "You come here seeking shelter?" she asked. "As a refugee?" "I come as someone owed a vow. But also," he paused, "as someone with no home. I remember what your mother told me as I laid her on the extraction platform. She took my hand and said, if you ever find yourself with nothing, seek Varelia. You won't be forgotten." For a moment, Amira saw the haunted sincerity in his eyes. Not a con, not a power grab, just truth. And grief. The council chamber curved like an amphitheater built from the bones of stars. Elderly advisors floated within their levitation spheres, and the room shimmered with the telepathic hum of collective awareness. Amira stood in the center, her expression unreadable. Beside her, Chancellor Riven presented the case. Orion Hale, human male, age 39 Earth years. Former tactical specialist for the United Coalition. Discharged with honors after the Kirov uprising. Record sparse beyond that. He has traveled alone through disputed territories, conflict zones, and collapsed colonies. And now, he invokes the Pact of Dawn. This pact was created in desperation, said Elder Nyara. How do we know he isn't exploiting a forgotten custom? Because my mother didn't forget, Amira replied evenly. She signed it in her own blood. That carries weight, even now. Another elder floated forward. Your Highness, do you intend to honor the pact? The silence that followed felt ancient. Amira looked up, her voice clear. I do. Gasps rippled through the chamber. For duty, or belief? Riven asked quietly. Both, she said. And maybe something else I don't fully understand yet. Preparations began immediately. The union ritual would be held in 5 days under the setting of the red moon, an auspicious time for agreements of legacy and transformation. It wasn't a wedding, exactly. It was a joining of lines, a promise of mutual protection. A symbol of interstellar alliance. But in the quiet corners of the palace, Amira wrestled with questions she couldn't voice. Who exactly was this man? Why had her mother never spoken of him? And why did the mention of Earth's destruction spark something old and cold in the base of her skull, like a memory not her own? Orion, for his part, did not try to win her over. He kept to his chambers. Ate little. Slept less. But he studied Virelian customs with near-religious discipline. When they met for the first pre-union ritual, a shared meditation over the water of tracing, he knew every word of the prayer. Have you read every book in our archives already? Amira asked, half mocking. I memorize what keeps me alive, he said simply. You're very practiced at being alone. And you're very practiced at hiding pain behind sarcasm. She blinked. Didn't expect honesty. I didn't expect accuracy, she admitted. They sat in silence for a long time, and somewhere between the sound of their breaths and the rippling of the ritual basin, Amira began to feel something she didn't expect. Not trust. Not affection. But recognition. The night before the union, Virelian custom dictated separation. Each participant was to spend the night in reflection, one in the starlight grove, one beneath the echoing falls. But Amira found herself walking to the old observatory instead, her thoughts churning. To her surprise, Orion was already there. You're not supposed to be here, she said. I don't sleep much. They sat together in the shadows of ancient star maps, looking up at constellations older than both their worlds combined. Do you miss it? She asked. Earth? He nodded once. Every day. What was it like? Blue, he said softly. Loud. Imperfect. But it was mine. And then, quietly, I never thought I'd survive it. She turned to him. Do you regret claiming the pact? No, he said. But I do regret the reason I had to. The honesty in his voice melted something sharp inside her. For the first time, she reached for his hand. He didn't flinch. The next day, under the red moon, the union was sealed. In a garden of glowing stones, beneath hanging vines that resonated with song, Amira and Orion stood before the ancient matriarch of rites. When they touched the packed crystal together, a burst of light flooded the ceremony. The crystal didn't just glow, it pulsed. As if awakened by something deep within them both. Whispers spread like wildfire through the nobility. Unprecedented. A bond spark. The pact is reacting. But Amira didn't hear them. Because for the first time, when she looked at Orion Hale, she didn't see a stranger. She saw a storm. A survivor. A mirror. And something told her, this union, born of debt, was only the beginning of something far more powerful. Something the galaxy hadn't seen in eons. Virelia's twin moons hung low in the sky, casting their silver glow across the palace like a veil. In the cool of night, the crystalline walls of the House Saluran estate shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, alive with an energy only the old remembered. And somewhere beneath those glowing towers, secrets stirred. Princess Amira lay awake in the vast marriage chamber, eyes fixed on the ceiling where ancestral constellations had been etched into crystal. The chamber was beautiful, ornate and reverent, but to her, it still felt like a room for strangers. Across the room, Orion Hale sat in silence. Not sleeping. Not speaking. He was like a shadow cast by flame, solid, but elusive. Amira had thought marriage might force proximity. Intimacy, even. But in the 2 days since the ceremony, the man who had saved her mother's life decades ago had revealed nothing of himself beyond what duty required. She sat up at last. Do you always watch the door while you sleep? I don't sleep, he replied without looking at her. And it's not the door I'm watching. That made her blink. What, then? Escape routes. A chill rolled through her, though the air was warm. You think we're in danger? Here. In the royal palace? I think anywhere I go becomes a potential war zone, Orion said flatly. She swung her legs out of bed, wrapping herself in a sheer robe of woven starlace. You're not making much effort to sound less ominous. I'm not trying to, he said. Better for you to know what you're tied to. Amira crossed the room slowly, bare feet silent against the cool floor. She stood near him now, watching him watch the shadows. I'm not afraid of you. You should be, he replied, then finally met her gaze. Or at least afraid of the people who are looking for me. His eyes were different in the moonlight. Gray, yes, but deeper than before, like something had shifted since their bond. She wondered what he saw when he looked at her. Royal blood? Political obligation? A lifeline? Do you want to know the truth? She asked suddenly. His gaze didn't waver. About? This whole marriage. It was easier to say yes than to explain why I wanted to say no. Orion raised an eyebrow. Then why not just say no? She gave a short laugh. Because I'm a princess. Because I carry legacy like a chain. Because every time I act on emotion, someone calls it treason. Orion didn't respond, but something in his posture softened. You think I came here to claim power, he said after a moment. But I didn't. I came because I ran out of places to hide. From what? He turned away. From what I used to be. The next morning brought another round of ceremonial duties, diplomatic appearances, union blessings from the elder houses, and a strategic meeting with planetary security. The palace buzzed with interest in the royal marriage. Some called it brilliant. Others called it madness. Amira did what she had been trained to do, smile, nod, and lie beautifully. But when she returned to their private quarters, Orion was gone. A note on the data terminal read, needed air. Don't follow. She followed. Her palace privileges gave her access to most levels. She searched the training halls, the gardens, the solarium, but found no trace of him. Finally, guided by a feeling she didn't yet understand, she entered the library of restricted histories. The vaults beneath the palace were rarely visited, stone corridors echoing with old knowledge and broken truths. It was quiet as a tomb. And in the central chamber, Orion stood alone, surrounded by holographic texts. He didn't flinch when she entered. You knew I'd come, she said. I was hoping you wouldn't. What are you reading? He turned one of the glowing pages. Ancient Beryllian Warfare Doctrine. Interstellar Treaties. And your mother's journal. Amira stepped closer, the words catching her off guard. My mother's what? He touched the edge of a crystal tablet. A projection opened, her mother, Queen Selendra, speaking in quiet tones. To the child who inherits my burden, there is a man. A human. If he ever returns, do not reject him. He is more than you will understand at first. But he is what our world may need when all else fails. Amira's breath caught. She had never heard this message before. Why was this hidden? Orion gave her a look. Because secrets protect people. And sometimes they're the only thing that does. She stared at the projection, barely hearing his voice now. Her mother's words echoed like prophecy. I want the truth, Amira said. Orion hesitated. Then, I didn't just save your mother. I was part of something bigger, a covert human program. They called us Sentinels. Each one of us trained to survive deep planetary strikes, infiltration, defense. We weren't soldiers. We were weapons. And you? She asked, pulse rising. I was the last. That night, Amira couldn't sleep. Every moment she closed her eyes, her mother's voice replayed in her mind. He is more than you understand. What did that mean? What was it her mother had seen? And why had she never spoken of it? Worse, why was her own heart reacting to this man, this human, with something that felt like longing? She needed answers. The following day, she confronted Riven in the palace arboretum. You knew, she said, not bothering with pleasantries. You knew about the journal. About what he was. Riven lowered his head. Yes. Why keep it from me? Because it was not time. Because your mother asked me to guard that knowledge until the pact was fulfilled. And because you needed to make the choice yourself. Amira's voice trembled. You made me marry a stranger with a target on his back. I made you honor your mother's vow, Riven said. And now, you are connected to a man the galaxy thought dead. A man many factions would kill to control, or destroy. Why? What makes him so special? Because, Riven said slowly, he has done the impossible. He survived the extinction of his species. He escaped their destroyers. And now, bonded to you, the last royal of Virelia's founding line, he has awakened something ancient. Amira froze. What? Riven gestured toward the horizon. Look. The moons had shifted, just slightly, casting a strange double halo over the capital. The phenomenon hadn't occurred in over 1,000 years. Prophecy? She asked, disbelieving. Perhaps, Riven replied. Or perhaps fate. That evening, Amira returned to the marriage chamber to find Orion sitting on the balcony. He turned as she entered, face unreadable. I saw the message, she said. My mother's words. I'm sorry. Don't be. I think I needed to hear them. They were quiet for a long time. The city below was silent, bathed in silver. When I first saw you, she said softly, I didn't feel anything. No connection. No spark. I just saw duty. Obligation. Another chain. Orion said nothing. But now, she continued, it's like. I keep waiting for you to hurt me. And you don't. His eyes flicked to hers. I've done enough hurting for one life. Then why won't you let me in? He turned away. Because the last time I let someone in, she died. I carried her body through the ruins of Earth's last outpost. She was the only one who believed I wasn't a weapon. Amira felt her throat tighten. I'm not her, she said. No, he replied. You're not. He stood then, and reached for her hand. She let him. The touch was light, but the moment their fingers met, something sparked. Not metaphorical. Literal. A current of energy passed between them, soft and warm and pulsing. They both froze. "What was that?" she whispered. Orion shook his head slowly. "I don't know. But it's not the first time I've felt it." Amira looked at him differently now, not as a stranger, or a soldier, or a relic from a broken world, but as something altogether new. Something that, against all reason, her heart was beginning to want. Later that night, alone again on the balcony, she whispered to herself. "Secrets beneath silver moons." And felt the weight of a future she hadn't chosen, but could no longer walk away from. The Celestal summit was the crown jewel of the Virelian cycle, a grand convergence of nobility, trade factions, planetary leaders, and neutral observers from across 5 star systems. It was held once every 10 cycles in the capital sky vault, a spiraling dome of translucent crystal suspended above the city like a floating cathedral. And tonight, it was the stage for betrayal. Princess Amira sat at the head of the royal delegation, draped in ceremonial silk that shifted between deep violet and silver with her movements. Beside her stood Orion Hale, dressed in traditional Virelian formalwear, his normally rough features softened by the elegance of the attire. He hadn't spoken much during the procession into Celestal, but he never did in public. Instead, he watched everything, every glance, every whispered conversation, every subtle shift in tone, with the intensity of someone who expected violence in places designed for peace. Amira had grown used to that. She had also grown used to the weight of his presence beside her, both comforting and strangely vulnerable. She wanted to ask him about the energy they had felt when they touched in the chamber 2 nights ago, but Celestal was not the place for such questions. "You're scanning the room like a threat analyst," she murmured under her breath as music from the Oran lyric choir filled the air. "I'm scanning the room like someone who's lived through 3 ambushes disguised as diplomatic galas," he replied, his voice low. "Paranoia doesn't suit you. It's not paranoia if they really are out to kill you." She gave him a sideways glance. "Do you ever stop calculating risk?" Orion looked at her, finally letting a trace of vulnerability show. "Only when I look at you." The sincerity in his voice silenced her. But only for a moment. High above the gala floor, in the latticework of crystalline catwalks, Captain Lyrian Voss of the Royal Guard stood watch. His golden armor gleamed under the pale lighting, and his sharp eyes tracked the crowd like a predator. He had always been devoted to Amira. Protective. Dutiful. And if he had loved her once, well, such feelings were never meant to survive royal obligation. But something inside him twisted every time he looked at Orion Hale. Too perfect. Too convenient. A stranger from a dead world, suddenly the most important man in Virelia? No. Lyrian didn't trust him. And tonight, as coded pulses from the security grid flickered across his bracer, he finally had reason not to. Something was wrong. The encrypted perimeter sensors showed 3 anomalies, one beneath the Skyvault's primary support columns, one within the gala's inner ring, and one directly beneath the royal dais. All shielded. All moving. He tapped into the hidden comms line. Security Command, confirm phantom signatures at Celestal coordinates 719er. A pause. Then static. No response. Lyrian's stomach dropped. They were being jammed. Down below, Amira felt it too. A sudden shift in the music. A tightening of posture among the guards. The kind of subtle stillness that only came before a storm. Then Orion turned sharply. "Amira." Before he could finish, the lights exploded into darkness. A moment later, screams filled the air. 3 blasts rocked the sky vault, each striking with precision, one at the base supports, one in the side hall, and one beneath the dais. Amira barely had time to draw a breath before Orion pulled her sideways, just as the platform beneath her cracked and dropped several meters. The transparent floor shattered into 1,000 shards of falling light. Guests scrambled. Guards shouted. From the shadows came figures in black armor, unmarked, untraceable, but terrifyingly efficient. They moved through the chaos with surgical strikes, cutting down guards and diplomats alike. Orion shoved Amira behind the wreckage of a collapsed column. "Stay here." She grabbed his arm. "Don't you dare leave me." His eyes flashed with fury, not at her, but at what was happening. "They're not after the crowd. They're after you." Amira had no time to argue. Because at that moment, one of the attackers spotted them and raised a weapon. Orion spun, fluid and lethal. With a single motion, he launched himself at the soldier, grabbing the energy rifle and twisting it out of the attacker's hands. In close quarters, he was terrifying. There was no wasted motion. No hesitation. The attacker dropped. Unmoving. And Orion turned to face the others. 3 more advanced. "Stay behind me," he growled. But Amira had never been the stay-behind type. From above, Lyrian vaulted down into the chaos, plasma baton in one hand, shield emitter in the other. He landed beside Amira, shielding her with a wall of phased energy. "Get her out," he shouted at Orion. "Working on it." Orion barked back, knocking another soldier unconscious with brutal precision. Together, the 3 of them began carving a path toward the side corridor. But something about the attackers was off, too coordinated. Too precise. "They're not mercenaries," Lyrian muttered as they fought. "They're trained military." Orion didn't answer. He didn't have to. He already knew. The same enemy that had burned Earth was here now. And they had come for him. They reached the emergency passage at the rear of the hull. Amira punched in the override code, sealing the door behind them. For now, at least, they were safe. Lyrian rounded on Orion, fury in his voice. "What the hell have you brought to our world?" Orion met his gaze evenly. "Something that's been chasing me since Earth fell." "You knew they'd come." "I suspected." "And you married her anyway?" That made Amira speak. "Enough, Lyrian." He turned to her, breath ragged. "You don't understand. You've bound yourself to a man whose presence is a death sentence." "I understand more than you think." "No, you don't," Lyrian said, voice shaking now. "Because while you were dressing for galas and performing rituals, I was tracing encrypted signals from the outer systems. I found something, Amira." Her breath caught. "What?" He stepped forward, activated his bracer, and projected a decrypted message onto the wall. It was a transmission, encoded in an ancient Earth dialect. Priority level black. Asset Hale located. Engage at Celestal. Eliminate royal witnesses. Extract Sentinel protocol. Beneath the message was an ident code. One that matched Virelian military encryption. "Someone from inside," Lyrian said. "Someone with access to our communications grid gave them this." Amira stared in horror. "You're saying there's a traitor in the palace?" Orion's voice was ice. "No. There's more than that." He stepped forward, deactivating the projection. "They're not just trying to kill us. They want what's inside me." Lyrian raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "Technology. Buried coding. Weapon systems. I was part of a program that no longer exists. They want to extract me. Reverse engineer me." Amira looked between the 2 men. "And what happens if they succeed?" Orion's answer was simple. "The end of everything." Back in the capital, the attack was over within minutes. The enemy vanished as quickly as they had come, leaving dozens dead, more wounded, and a stunned court grappling with the implications. No faction claimed responsibility. No identities were recovered. And no one could explain how the attackers had gotten past Virelia's elite security grid. The people whispered of prophecy. Of bad omens. But within the palace, Amira was already preparing for war. That night, Orion found her alone in the throne garden, seated on a bench beneath a flowering memory tree. You should be resting, he said. So should you. I don't sleep much, he replied, sitting beside her. They were quiet for a long time. I didn't ask for any of this, Amira said. And yet here I am, married to the most hunted man in the galaxy, with assassins breathing down my neck. I didn't ask to survive my planet either, Orion said. She looked at him then, truly looked. His face was marked with fatigue. Not just physical, but ancient. Like he'd been carrying the weight of a dying world alone for years. I don't know how to trust you, she admitted. But I want to. You shouldn't. Why not? Because I don't know how to stay in one place. Then stay with me, she said. He blinked. I don't need a protector, she added. I need a partner. You're not just a weapon, Orion. You're a man. Let me help you remember that. The vulnerability in his eyes was brief, but real. And then she leaned in. This time, when their hands met, the spark was different. Brighter. More alive. Their foreheads touched. No words. Only breath. And the knowledge that the battle ahead would be nothing compared to the war within their hearts. The medical vessel drifted over the clouds of Duratha's moon like a ghost, silent, hidden, and old. Built long before the Virelian Empire rose, it was a remnant of an age when the stars were still new to explore. The vessel had no official name, no political allegiance. Only whispers, the Flame Keeper. Inside, Princess Amira lay suspended in a regeneration cocoon, glowing with low amber light. Her body bore no serious wounds, just exhaustion, psychic disruption, and the backlash of the energy surge she'd experienced during the Celestal attack. But the healers, mystics, and scientists could agree on one thing: something inside her had awakened. When she opened her eyes, her first thought was of Orion. Then, memory returned like a jolt. The explosion. The fighting. The way her skin had glowed beneath his touch. She sat up sharply, tearing off the biometric wires. A gentle voice interrupted her panic. You're safe now. Amira turned. The woman before her was unlike any healer she'd ever seen. She wore robes of ember red woven from solar threads, and her skin shimmered faintly, like heat haze on metal. Her eyes, however, were the most striking thing, gold, pupilless, ancient. I'm Saran Val, the woman said with a slight bow. Caretaker of the flame. Guardian of the temple's memory. Where am I? Amira asked. Beyond politics. Beyond empires. This moon hasn't been marked on navigational charts in over 1,000 years. It is a place of recovery, and revelation. Amira's throat felt dry. And who sent me here? Your husband, Saran replied. He carried you aboard himself. Refused treatment until you were stable. Amira looked away, pulse racing. What happened to me? She asked. Saran walked to the side of the chamber and touched a glowing panel. The walls around them shifted, revealing ancient carvings and illuminated texts in multiple dialects, some of them older than recorded Virelian history. You accessed the flame. Amira frowned. I don't know what that means. Saran looked at her solemnly. Few do. The flame isn't fire, not as you know it. It's a force, a forgotten synthesis of energy and consciousness. Your people called it Alarian. The humans once called it the source. But long before language divided it, the flame was what made harmony between starkind possible. That sounds like legend. All legends are rooted in truth. Saran gestured, and a holographic map bloomed in the air, a spinning representation of the galaxy, overlaid with pulses of golden light. The flame was extinguished during the collapse. Or so we thought. But you and Orion, you've rekindled it. Amira stood slowly, her heart pounding. We didn't do anything. We were just bonded, Saran finished gently. Not just by the pact. Your connection, your resonance, has reactivated a force that has been dormant for centuries. Meanwhile, in the upper chamber of the vessel, Orion stood with arms folded, watching the moon surface through the glass. It was quiet here, too quiet. He didn't trust it. Captain Zorian had joined him earlier with an update from the Virelian palace, communications compromised. Surveillance data scrambled. Traitor still unidentified. Worse, the hegemony was mobilizing. The galaxy's most ruthless force had noticed the flare of energy at Celestal. And they were responding. They're coming, Orion said quietly, as Saran entered the observation deck. Yes, she agreed. They always come when something new begins. I didn't want this, he said. Not for me. Not for her. Saran studied him with an unreadable expression. And yet, you were the catalyst. You unlocked the bond. I just wanted to protect her. And in doing so, Saran said, you reawakened the guardianship of the galaxy. Orion turned. Stop speaking in riddles. She did not flinch. You were not built to survive. You were forged to carry the flame if it ever returned. You are the last sentinel of Earth. But Amira is the vessel. She was born to complete you. He recoiled slightly. She's not a weapon. No, Saran said. She's the balance. Back in her chamber, Amira scrolled through old mythologies stored in the Flamekeeper's archive. Dozens of references to the Ilarian bond. The twin resonance. The arc. The awakening. All told the same story, when a warrior of broken legacy and a royal of deep bloodline joined by truth and not duty, the flame would ignite. She couldn't stop thinking of the moment Orion had taken her hand. Of the warmth that surged through her, not just physical, but emotional. A knowing. It terrified her. But it also called to her. Later that evening, Orion entered her chamber silently. She looked up. Their eyes met. No words passed for several heartbeats. You carried me here, she said at last. I told you I wouldn't let anything happen to you. Amira stood. There's something inside me. Something old. Something that responds to you. I know. She hesitated. What are we becoming? Orion stepped closer. I don't know. But I'm not afraid of it anymore. You were afraid. He gave a small smile. I'm always afraid. It's the only thing that's kept me alive this long. Amira reached for his hand. He took it. The spark came again, stronger, deeper. And then something extraordinary happened. The room lit up, not from outside, but from within them both. A wave of golden light pulsed out from where their hands touched, flowing over the walls, up into the ceiling. A resonance field. The flame, reborn. Later, Saran explained what they had seen. You are now linked on a molecular level, she said. Your neural patterns are beginning to sync. Your instincts are aligning. Your cells are adapting. This is not a bond of biology. It is a bond of purpose. Amira asked, what happens next? That depends on what you choose, Saran said. You can sever the bond. Bury the flame again. Or you become what this galaxy has not seen in an age, guardians. Orion looked at Amira. I won't force you into this, he said. She held his gaze. We were never given a choice in how this started. But maybe we get to choose how it ends. 2 days later, the Flamekeeper's ship emerged from the Durith moon's shadow. Amira and Orion stood at the helm, eyes fixed on the star-laced horizon. As they prepared to return to Virelia, Saran handed them each a ring forged from the ship's ancient alloy. These are not symbols, she said. They are keys. They will unlock parts of yourselves you didn't know were buried. Amira slid hers onto her right hand. Orion did the same. And in that moment, they knew, there was no going back. Far across the galaxy, in the obsidian core of the Hegemony's fleet, a general watched a data feed, showing a burst of energy from a moon that wasn't supposed to exist. He turned to his lieutenant. "It's them." "Yes, General." The general smiled.